Putin's ultimate objectives in Ukraine really are, and whether he genuinely believed that the invasion would be as swift and decisive as he initially portrayed it. But the reality on the ground has been very different. It's a protracted and bloody conflict with heavy casualties on both sides and devastating consequences for the Ukrainian people, a humanitarian crisis that's still unfolding.
It's a truly tragic situation with no easy solutions in sight. So how is this war, how has it impacted Putin's image, both domestically and internationally?
Well, on the world stage, he's become increasingly isolated. He's been labeled a pariah, accused of war crimes, condemned by many world leaders. But within Russia, the picture is a little more complicated. State-controlled media has pushed this narrative of a defensive war against Western aggression, and there's evidence that at least initially a lot of Russians rallied around Putin.
But there have also been signs of dissent too, right? Like haven't people in Russia protested against the war, even though it's, pretty risky?
Absolutely. There have been some really courageous individuals and groups within Russia who have spoken out against this war, risking arrest, fines, even imprisonment. They represent this vital voice of opposition, challenging the official narrative, highlighting the human cost of this conflict.
So we've got this war with global ramifications, international isolation for Putin, a tightening grip on power within Russia. It's a really complex and, ever-evolving situation. Where does all of this leave Putin? What does the future hold for him and for Russia?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
It's a situation with so many variables. I mean, predictions are almost impossible.
Right.
Some experts, they believe that Putin has overreached, that this war will ultimately weaken his hold on power, and that Russia's heading for a period of real instability. But others argue that he's managed to maintain control, that the sanctions, while damaging, haven't crippled Russia, and that he's prepared to play a long game, just waiting for the international community's resolve to waver.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've journeyed through decades of history, examining some really complex events, and explored the shifting dynamics of global power. We delved into Putin's KGB past, his rapid rise to power, his early economic reforms, his increasingly authoritarian rule, his actions in Crimea and Syria, and ultimately his decision to launch this war in Ukraine.
It's been quite a deep dive.
It really has. Hopefully you, the listener, now have a better understanding of who Vladimir Putin is, how he operates, and the profound impact he's had on Russia and the world.
And while we've only just scratched the surface, we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have, and we always emphasize that there's always so much more to learn and explore. What stood out to you, listener, as the most intriguing or surprising aspect of Putin's story? What questions are still swirling around in your mind?
Here's a final thought to ponder. Will history remember Putin as the leader who restored Russia to greatness, or as an autocrat who led his country into isolation